Okay, how to stand in faith. I want to give a little bit of context about what that means, an illustration, and also a practical example, just very quickly. Sometimes we use so many words in church, and if you've been in church for very long, you'll know what I'm talking about. We use words like stand and faith, and I think sometimes we lift them a little bit out of their context, or we talk so much about them, they lose a little bit of their meaning, and then the idea is not being conveyed. So I wanted to talk just briefly about first the context of what that means to stand in faith. Now in Ephesians 6, when Paul is talking about putting on the full armor of God, that definitely gives it a military context to those verses there. Now, when he's saying to stand, he's meaning that in a military context. Excuse me. Back then in those times when they went to fight a battle, it wasn't like nowadays where you don't see people. They had to stand shoulder to shoulder, okay? And they usually stood in some sort of formation with their shields hopefully touching or overlapping each other, and it made like a solid wall. And then they had their sword or their spear or whatever weapon kind of sticking out above or below. And what they did when they advanced forward like that, it became like a moving wall that had these sharp spears or swords sticking out of it. And so that would drive the enemy out. Well, conversely, if the enemy was attacking them, okay, and they were going to take the attack, they wanted to stay in formation. You didn't want to break up the formation. You didn't want to break the line. So if the enemy was the one moving forward, they would wait for the attack. But it wasn't a passive thing. They were, for instance, they had taken some territory, and they're like, we're not going to be moved off of this territory. So the enemy attacks, and when they stand there, hopefully that keeps the formation, and also it gives them a chance to brace with their weapons, and the enemy may impale himself on the spear that's sticking out, if that makes sense, if you can picture that. You've probably seen things like this in movies and that sort of thing. So standing in that context, like if they say we're going to make our stand on this hill, and that wasn't a passive thing of just, okay, well, we've done everything we could, we'll just see what happens, There was still, that was standing, you were still in the battle, you were right there in the battle, and you're going to stand there. In other words, you're going to make your stand until the enemy till he was gone. Okay, a modern illustration of that would be kind of like during a football game, when the ball gets to the quarterback. Well, that opposite team, they're coming to get that guy. They're coming to get the quarterback. So he can't panic. Those are some great big guys coming after him, but he can't panic. He needs to look around and make the play. So if you didn't know anything about football and were watching the game, you see all these guys, battling and pushing each other. And then you see this one guy, he's just standing there looking like he's looking around. No, he's not. He's standing there for a moment, but he's making an aggressive move. Standing can be aggressive, okay? He's looking to complete the play, right? He's not just daydreaming there. So he's looking to find a receiver or find a hole where he can run up. Okay, now I'm also going to give a practical example of this in action, okay? Now, don't read too much into this. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it or anything like that. It's just a practical example. A lot of times when I go to pray for a stranger or something, I will say, let me show you something, or I know something that helps with that. After they said what's wrong, I'll just say, I know something that helps with that, because a lot of times if you say, let me pray for you, people get really strange about that. Even, I would say, maybe especially very religious people, they can get offended, but that's a whole different story, okay? So, in this one example, this guy had told me, I can't remember all the details, but something was wrong with his back, and I said, okay, well, let me show you something. And so he said, okay. I was like, let me put my hand right here where it's hurting. He's like, okay. It was maybe the lower part of his back. And we stood there for a second, and it gets awkward. And he looks at me, and he's like, I was like, what are you feeling in there? And he's like, nothing. I was like, okay, well, just give it a second. Okay, see, right there, I'm standing. If from that experience of doing this before, I know it's going to happen. Okay, my five senses, my natural mind, my reasoning, you know, they're saying, oh, nothing's happening. Just pray for the guy and say, just pray out loud, you know, in a very traditional way, and let him go, you know, and say, hey, you know, maybe it'll happen one day or something like that. But no, I'm going to stand there. I'm like, oh no, just wait just a second. Just hold on. And we waited, and he kind of looks, and he's like, I said, are you feeling anything in there now? The pain's the same, you know, I'm not feeling anything. I was like, okay, well, just hold on, you know. And I don't know how many times we did it, but if I didn't have experience doing that, I would be tempted to go, okay, well, I guess that's not working. But I just kept saying, hold on, just wait just a second. And it wasn't long before I could tell he was feeling something, and he's like, huh. You know, and I was like, what is it? Anyway, I can't remember all the details, but but he asked me, he thought that I had wired myself up with some kind of electricity and was putting some kind of electrical current in him or something like that. I don't remember exactly the details, like I said, but anyway, it took a while, and I've prayed for people, and they said, I don't feel nothing, and I've learned if I just hang around and talk to them for a little while, it'll start happening, like after we get through praying and everything, and we're just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden they'll go, hey, you know, this is going on, or it just left. So again, don't misunderstand me and think I'm saying that, you know, if you pray for somebody, you know, you have to stand there and wait till it happens. I mean, I think that's good. I think that's one way to stand, but, you know, I've had it pray for people, and then the next day something leaves. They didn't even know this was wrong, or excuse me, I didn't know this certain thing was wrong with them. So don't read too much into that. I'm just saying that's an example of standing in faith, okay? You don't take no for an answer, okay? However, whatever that looks like. In that situation, specific situation out on the street, I did literally stand there and wait and stand, and you know, your five senses, your logic, your reasoning, your natural reasoning is saying, oh God, is somebody looking at us? Did you see anybody? Can they see what's going on here? What is this guy thinking? Okay, wow, did this go wrong? What did I do? You know, what's wrong? You know, and you stand against all that, and who knows, like I said, where does the flesh leave off and the enemy pick up? I don't know, but hopefully that'll give you a little better example that standing is not just something that's just passively done, where like, oh well, you know, people don't say it, but in their heart, like, we tried, you know, now we're just gonna believe God. And I don't know, sometimes I don't know what people, it seems like when they say we're just gonna believe God, it just kind of means, well, we quit, you know. But anyway, hope that helps.